Welcome back, everyone.
Hola! Hey!
Thank you so much to those who are hanging out here with me after school as I cut this pre-recorded lecture for you. This is the lecture for Wednesday, October 7th. You're going to be needing these items.
Hi, Jacob.
So if you haven't already picked these up, please do so. You'll notice that I've got Wednesdays at the bottom and Thursdays at the top for you. I remembered that that was an issue. So go ahead and cut those out. We're going to be using them as the lecture progresses. So I'll give you a few moments to get those all cut while I do my own cutting. And again, thank you for my volunteers who are here to be,
Audience.
yeah, the audience.
You're welcome, ma'am.
My brain shut down there for a second. What are we talking about again?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I think it was silence.
Feel free to pause this video whenever you need in order to finish your cuttings, because I'm just going to get started as soon as my cuttings are done. All right, so you should have 2 titles, 1 big, 1 small, and 3 graphs, 2 of which don't have any points on them, and 1 that does. Go ahead and get your table of contents updated right now. Oh, and you also ended up with a date there for you. I put a date this time. So if you want to give that a trim, you can use that as the date in your notes. That would be fine with me. All right, gonna glue in my title. Today is Chapter 1, Lesson 3. We're going to be revisiting Midpoint. As always, you can find the title and lesson code listed under the La Feria logo. Make sure that you get the title and the objectives written down. So taking a quick look in my sample notebook, I've updated KWLs for all of those items. So if you're not sure what prompts to use, you can come into my binders and you can look at those prompts to help you decide what to write. Whoops. Oh no. I went a little crazy with the glue on that one. Note to self, less glue. All right, so this was Tuesday's lecture, also found on my YouTube channel. That was yesterday's upload. You should have already written this in. You will need a KWL for that lesson, which you were given on the same day as those notes. And so we will begin here on this page. Take a moment now to set yourself up for notes. Feel free to pause this video for as long as you need in order to get it written down, both title and objectives. Oh, what did I do with the title? Oh, there it is. There's my title. So used to writing down the date, I just went ahead and wrote it. I went ahead and read it. Wow, I will learn to speak English. That is my objective for the day.
Is it cool if I take this chair real quick?
Yeah, go right ahead. All right, you've already got your objectives written down. Again, they are underneath the title under the La Feria logo, that way on your screen. Let's go ahead and get started. So we're talking about midpoint, and this is something that should be a recall. We already did this. In fact, the chapter code is very similar to what we've seen before. So I want to recall midpoint. Pause the video here, go back in your notes to find midpoint formula, write it down once you've found it, unpause, and continue your notes. All right, so you have found the midpoint formula, and it says something like this. The coordinates of your midpoint is equal to this fraction, which is x plus x. I'm sorry, x2 plus x1, comma, y2 plus y1. And both of those items are over 2. It's the average of those. Well, I'd like to clarify this formula real quick here, and I'd like to rewrite it this way. I'd like to write it that the x-coordinate of the midpoint and the y-coordinate of the midpoint is given by that formula that you already have written down. And I'm adding this sense of notation because today's topic is going to be, yes, looking at this formula again, but not just trying to find the coordinates of the midpoint, but using this formula with the midpoint to find one of the missing coordinates. Let's go ahead and just remind ourselves how we calculate a midpoint, and then we'll move forward with the next one. So let's start with our first example right here. So you'll want this graphic. Go ahead and pause the video now so that you can get that graphic in your notes. All right, so we need to calculate the midpoint of this line segment. First thing to do is decide what is my x1, y1, and what is my x2, y2. Let's take this one to be our x1, y1. Why not? Though the choice is yours, you are free to make whatever choice on that you'd like. And so my formula for the midpoint of that item, I'm going to start by writing the formula again, as always. And I'm going to substitute in what I have. I'm going to zoom in really close into my work because I no longer need the graphic. Excuse me. Squiggly bar to make it easy to read what I'm doing. So the x midpoint and y midpoint is equal to x2 is -1, x1 is 5, and then y1 is 8, and y2 is, I'm sorry, y2 is 8, y1 is 2. My apologies. Okay, simplifying this down, it gives me the coordinates of midpoint as 4/2 and 10/2. And so my midpoint coordinates are 2, 5. 2, 5. Oops, I'm sorry. Went off the screen and I didn't notice. I wasn't looking up. All right, pause the video, rewind it, and rewatch that example as many times as you need. Let's go ahead and move on to the next example. The next example is using this graphic. Go ahead and pause the video now to get that glued in. And the thing that we need to add is that this point right here is actually the midpoint of this segment. And so what we want to know is what are the coordinates of the other endpoint? So we're going to have the coordinates of one endpoint, and we're going to have the coordinates of the midpoint. Coordinates are 4, 5, and the midpoint is at 2, 2. And so what we want to find is the other midpoint, or excuse me, other endpoint. And that's our goal. So we're going to start with, and I'm going to write really small because I didn't leave myself very much room for all of these big fractions. Sorry. We want to use this formula, our midpoint formula. So I'm going to start off by writing it again. And now I'm going to substitute in what I know. Now, xm is what I know. That's the x-coordinate of the midpoint. So this is 2, and this is 2. And now I have either x1, y1, or x2, y2. And it's completely your choice which one you want to make this. I'm going to make this x1, y1, but of course you were allowed to make whatever choice you wanted. And so my formula is going to look like this after my substitutions. Now my recommendation is to do this in 2 sections. First, figure out the x-coordinate and then figure out the y-coordinate. So your setup is going to look something like this. xm equals x2 plus x1 over 2. And I already have this setup. There's the 2, and here's the x-coordinate, x2 plus 4 divided by 2. Now I see that division by 2, that fraction, and I know that still scares some of you, but since I have only one fraction, I can immediately get rid of it by undoing the fraction. Fraction implies division, and the opposite of division is multiplication. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. I end up with 4 equals x2 plus 4, not x squared, x4, or x2. I need to get rid of this positive 4 on both sides, and so that leaves me with x equaling 0. I'm going to do the same thing for the y-coordinate. Go ahead and pause the video here after I get this setup going, so that way you can try it, and then you can unpause the video and watch the workout, okay? All right, welcome back. I'm going to go ahead and write the setup. There it is. We're going to multiply everything by 2 to get rid of that fraction. And then we're going to subtract 5 from both sides. And when we do that, we end up with negative 1 equals y2. So the other endpoint of this particular segment that's sitting here, that has one endpoint at 4, 5, and a midpoint at 2, 2, is going to have its other endpoint at 0, negative 1. All right, go ahead and replay that section of the notes as often as you need. We're going to go ahead and go to the next part of our notes, and I'm out of room on this page in my composition book. You're going to need at least 5 or 6 lines for the next example. So if you have that much room, you can continue. If you don't, go ahead and set up on the next page. I do want to take a moment right now and title this portion. This is finding the coordinate of an endpoint. Okay, so that way you know which example that is. All right, last example for the day. This one is going to be titled Finding the Midpoint with a Construction. So you are definitely going to need protractor and compass for this item. So if you haven't already picked those up, pause the video now so that way you can get the compass and straight edge. All right, welcome back. Let's go ahead and do the bisector construction on this, because we want to find where that midpoint is going to be about, and then we're going to calculate it and see how close we got. So here's my line segment. Remember that to make a perpendicular bisector, our first idea, or first step is to kind of guess where the middle is going to be, and I'm going to guess it's going to be somewhere right around there. I think I didn't guess very well, but I'm going to make my compass radius a little bigger than that. So right about there, not all the way. And I'm going to make some pretty big arcs here with my compass. So I did one really big arc. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so that you can see the whole arc. Okay, and then I'm going to lift my compass, and using the same radius, I'm going to draw another arc. And really the important parts are where those arcs intersect. Now it looks like it went off my graphic, which could cause some problems for you. If that's troublesome for you, go ahead and make the compass radiuses a little smaller, and what it'll do is it'll bring these points in just a little bit closer to the line and put it on top of this image for you. All right, going to connect those two with a line. And so my midpoint should be somewhere right there. All right, now I've tilted this graphic a little bit, and there wasn't a clear up or down. So you could do this on any graphic that you, or any rotation that you want on this graphic. You're not going to get the same answer because suddenly our X and Y axes are going to be different, but the technique is going to be the same. All right, so on this one, my endpoint is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's at 7, 5, my one endpoint. And this other endpoint, stay packed up, okay? We got to leave real soon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is at -9. And it goes down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, -7. So we need to pick one of these points to be x1, y1. My daughter just walked in the room. She'd like to be my helper. So Miss Alora, for our studio audience, can you pick for me which one's going to be x1, y1?
Wait, what does that even mean?
Which is our first point? This 7, 5 point or this -9, -7 point?
I can choose anyone, and will that affect anything?
Not at all.
Well, the closest one to 27, which was my number, which was my bus last year, is 75. So, well, 75, and 7.
Just pick one.
Just
7, 5.
yeah, because it makes 75 without that little point there.
Okay, if you get rid of the comma, it turns into 75, which apparently is an important number for the child. There we go, x1, y1. Let's go ahead and start. Which forces this to be x2, y2. Let's go ahead and head over to the side and start with our formula. Starting with our midpoint formula says xm, comma, ym. Remember that's the x coordinate of midpoint. Y coordinate of midpoint is calculated by taking the two x coordinates, adding them together, dividing by 2, and then doing the same thing to the y coordinates. All right, substituting in for what we have. I do not know what the midpoint coordinates are just yet, but I do have x1 and x2. So -9 plus 7 divided by 2, and the y's -7 plus 5 divided by 2. Okay, going to zoom in very closely on my algebra work. You can help me with some numbers.
Algebra.
Yep, we're going to do some algebra, baby girl.
Let's do
All
this.
right, help me out. What is -9 plus 7?
Is it just like an addition problem?
It's very similar to an addition problem, but you see how the signs are different? You're going to have to subtract them and then give the answer the sign of the larger number.
Well,
So 9 minus 7 is? 2. And since the 9 carried the negative sign and it was the biggest one, my final answer is going to be a negative. All right, 7 minus 5,
7, 2.
also 2. And since the 7 is the largest, it's negative, then my answer is going to carry a negative. And so my midpoint coordinate, I have to simplify these fractions. Help me out with some division, sweetheart.
I feel like this entire thing is just about 2s.
It does feel like it's about 2's. Help me out with this division. Negative 2 divided by 2.
My color will be blue.
Negative 2 divided by 2 is a negative 1.
Cool. Can I write the -1 with my color?
I've got it down. Thank you, though, sweetheart. And look, I have a negative 2 divided by 2 again. What's my number now?
-1.
It's negative 1 again. There you go. And that would be our coordinates for the midpoint. Let's look back at the graphic and see how close we got. Hey, we got pretty darn close. It looks like it's right on the -1, -1.
Woo!
Yep, so we did really good.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. I'll zoom out so that everyone can see your thumbs up. That's all that I had for Midpoint Revisited. The new item that you really needed to focus on was this one right here, finding the coordinate of an endpoint given one endpoint and one midpoint.
Can I just tear a paper right now?
Feel free to watch this video as many times as you may need in order to get the hang of this. Thank you so much, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Goodbye. Thumbs up for algebra.